Right now, your child is safe. Warm room, soft bed, door closed. You're one room away, and if anything happens, you'll hear it. You built that safety deliberately. You chose it. You paid for it. But here is what nobody tells you about that safety. For 300,000 years of human history, a child sleeping alone in a dark room wasn't a parenting choice. It was a funeral waiting to happen.
Not because parents loved their children less, not because the world was simply harder, but because the human child is the most defenseless creature evolution ever produced, and keeping one alive required something so foreign to modern life that most people alive today have never once experienced it. The problem isn't the world. The problem is the baby. And the problem starts before it's even born.
Watch a newborn horse within hours of birth. It stands, it walks, it follows its mother. Within days, it runs. A newborn chimpanzee grips its mother's fur from the very first second, clinging, holding, traveling. It arrives in the world ready to hold on. A human baby arrives unable to hold up its own head. It cannot grip, cannot move, cannot feed itself, cannot stay silent when something dangerous is close.
Of every primate on Earth, the human infant is born the most unfinished, the most helpless, the most expensive to keep alive. And the reason is your brain. The human brain is so large that if it fully developed inside the womb the way a chimpanzee brain does, it would never fit through the birth canal. The mother would die, the baby would die, the species would end. So evolution made a deal.
Human babies are born with brains at 25% of adult size. Chimpanzees are born at 40%. That remaining 75%, the part that makes you capable of language, memory, complex thought, develops after birth, outside the womb, in the open world, while the baby is completely defenseless. This is not a flaw. This is the price. We got the most powerful brain on the planet. The cost was the most helpless infant on the planet.
Now, here is where it gets interesting. A 6-year-old child in 10,000 BC was not sitting inside a classroom, was not looking at a screen, was not being told to sit still and listen. That child was working, tracking animal footprints in wet mud, identifying which plants were safe and which would kill you within hours, reading cloud formations to predict rain, learning to move silently through dense forest without snapping a single branch. By age 6, survival was already the curriculum. By age 8, they were expected to contribute to the group's food supply. By age 12, many were considered adults with full responsibilities. A modern 6-year-old and an ancient 6-year-old share the exact same brain hardware, same size, same capacity, same raw processing power. But one brain was loaded with survival software from the moment it could walk. The other is still waiting to find out what it is actually for. That difference matters, and we will come back to it. But first, understand the cost of that ancient childhood. 50% of children in prehistoric populations never reached their 5th birthday. Not because parents were careless, not because ancient humans loved their children less, because the world was running a brutal selection process every single day. Disease with zero medicine, predators that hunted at night, winters with no heating, wounds that would be minor today, fatal then. The children who survived were not lucky, they were selected. Every child who made it to adulthood had already passed through a filter that modern children will never face. Their immune systems had fought real infections and won. Their bodies had learned to regulate temperature in genuine cold. Their minds had processed real fear, not simulated fear on a screen, real fear, the kind that rewires the nervous system permanently. This is not an argument that ancient childhood was better. Half of them died, but the half that survived were forged by something modern childhood has completely removed from the equation: genuine consequence. And yet, even in that brutal world, no mother did it alone. Not once. Not ever. In 300,000 years of human history, not a single mother successfully raised a human child in complete isolation. It was not possible. The energy required to grow a 75% unfinished brain inside a completely helpless body was too enormous for any one person to provide.
Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy spent decades studying this exact question. Her conclusion was simple, and it should unsettle you. Humans are cooperative breeders. We evolved to raise children as a group, not because it was culturally preferred, because without it, the species dies. Among the FA foragers of the Ituri forest in the Congo, researchers observed that a baby is held by an average of 14 different people in a single 8-hour period. 14. The infant transfers from one pair of arms to another roughly every 7 minutes. The mother holds the baby 40% of the time. The other 60%, the child is in someone else's arms entirely. Aunts, older siblings, grandmothers, neighbors, women with no biological connection to the child whatsoever. Among the Aka people of Central Africa, fathers remain within arm's reach of their infants more than 47% of the day. These are not modern fathers doing something progressive. These are men living the way humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years. The baby was never alone, never on the ground, never not touching someone. And that last part was not affection. It was survival. When humans became fully bipedal, walking upright, they lost the dense body hair that primate infants used to grip. A chimpanzee baby clings to its mother's fur from birth. A human baby has nothing to hold. So mothers carried them, every hour, every day, for years. They built slings from animal hides and plant fiber. Archaeologists excavating a burial site in Italy found an infant, roughly 10,000 years old, buried alongside what researchers believe was a decorated baby carrier, the oldest one ever found. But carrying was never just transportation. When a human infant is picked up and held against another body, something immediate happens. Heart rate drops, breathing slows, crying stops. Scientists call this the transport response. It is a biological program wired into every human infant's nervous system. In the wild, a crying baby was a location broadcast to every predator within range. A baby that went silent the moment it felt itself being carried to safety was a baby that didn't get its family killed. Your baby still runs this exact program, right now, tonight. When you pick up a screaming newborn and hold them against your chest and they suddenly go quiet, that is not comfort. That is a 300,000-year-old predator evasion reflex activating inside your child's nervous system. The baby concludes it is being carried away from danger. It goes silent so that nothing finds you both in the dark. It still works because evolution doesn't forget. Carrying kept the baby alive through movement, but movement doesn't feed a child. And what ancient humans fed their infants would make most modern parents deeply uncomfortable. There was no formula, no bottles, no clean water safe enough for an infant. Breast milk was the only sterile, nutritionally complete food available, and mothers breastfed for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. In many hunter-gatherer groups, 4 years or longer, not as a choice, as the only option that existed. Nursing also suppressed ovulation. A mother nursing constantly would not become pregnant again for years. Not by accident, by biological design. Because 2 completely helpless infants simultaneously in the Paleolithic meant the odds of losing both became catastrophic. And when the infant grew past milk and needed solid food, there were no jars, no processed cereals, no packaged food. What there was pre-mastication. The mother, or grandmother, or whoever was holding the baby, would chew meat or a tough root until it broke down, softened by saliva, partially digested by enzymes, then transferred directly from their mouth into the baby's mouth, lip to lip. Immune cells and antibodies delivered straight into the child. Some anthropologists now believe this is where human kissing came from. Not romance. A mother feeding her child the only way available. A gesture so fundamental to survival that it embedded itself permanently into human behavior. Long after the reason disappeared, the gesture remained. Most animals stop living shortly after they stop reproducing. No evolutionary logic in keeping a body running once it can no longer pass on genes. But human women live for decades after menopause. In 1997, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes studied the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer populations on Earth. Postmenopausal Hadza women were not resting. They were among the hardest working foragers in the entire group, digging tough tubers from hard-packed ground for hours, feeding their grandchildren.
This changed everything. A grandmother feeding the previous child meant the mother could have another baby sooner. The grandmothers who helped most raised the most grandchildren and passed on more of their genes. Menopause is not the body giving up. It is the body changing jobs.
Now, back to those two 6-year-olds. The ancient child tracking animals in wet mud, the modern child on a screen. Science has studied both, and the finding is not what most people expect. Ancient children were not smarter. Their raw intelligence was identical to modern children. Same brain, same capacity. But researchers studying the last remaining hunter-gatherer children found something that stopped them completely. These children show almost zero rates of anxiety, almost no depression, almost no concept of chronic boredom. They are never alone, but also never dependent. They move between adults constantly, helping, contributing, being genuinely needed by the group around them. Modern children, in the safest, most comfortable childhood in human history, show record rates of anxiety, record rates of depression, record rates of medicated mental health conditions. The difference is not intelligence, not opportunity, not love. It is purpose. The ancient child woke up knowing exactly what they were for. The group needed them. Their skills mattered. Their contribution was real and visible and valued every single day. The modern child has everything, except an answer to the question every human brain asks from the moment it becomes conscious. What am I actually here to do? We gave children safety. We gave them comfort. We gave them stimulation. We built the most protected childhood in the history of the species, and we forgot to give them a reason. For 300,000 years, no human mother raised a child alone. Not one, not ever. The average mother in a hunter-gatherer group had between 5 and 15 people actively helping her raise each child, every single day. Carrying, feeding, watching through the night. Today, that number is 2, often 1. You are sitting at 3 in the morning. The baby is screaming. The house is dark. Nobody is coming. No grandmother down the path, no aunt in the next room, no neighbor who will take the baby for 1 hour so you can close your eyes. Just you and the dark, and a child that evolution designed to be raised by a group. Exhaustion is not weakness. The loneliness is not failure. The feeling that this should not be this hard is not anxiety. It is your body remembering something your world forgot. Ancient childhood was brutal. Half of them died. The world tried to kill them every single day. We were right to build something safer. But somewhere in building the safest childhood in history, we quietly removed the 2 things that made a child's brain feel alive: consequence and purpose. The ancient child faced a world that could kill them, and survived it knowing exactly who they were. The modern child faces a world that gives them everything, and grows up still trying to figure out what they are for. We got the safety right. We just forgot what the safety was supposed to be for.